Well, hello everybody. Dave here again. Welcome back to my series, Dirty Secrets of the Bible. So what I'm going to talk about today is going to shock a lot of you Christians out there who are really ignorant to your own book, even some preachers out there. I'm going to talk about the 20 commandments. Now, I know your whole life you've been taught about the 10 commandments. Well, I'm going to show you that there are not 10 commandments. There's actually 20 commandments. And they're very, very different. Now, I'm not talking about all the Mosaic laws because there's over 600. I'm talking about two places in the Bible where stone tablets are referred to as 10 commandments, but they're very different. So let's start first at Exodus 20. And God spoke all the words. So now, let me begin this with the Israelites have made it out of Egypt. They're at the foot of the mountain. Moses has gone up on the mountain. And it says, I am the Lord your God who brought you out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make any image in the form of anything in the heaven above or on the earth beneath, in the waters below. So, you shouldn't make an image to anything. So, if you break this down logically, what this is talking about, you can't make a statue, a painting, you can't draw a picture of anything on the earth. So, I really feel sorry for all of those Christians who are on Facebook and Instagram and post all their selfies, all their pictures, because you're breaking the second commandment. You shall not misuse the name of the Lord your God, for the Lord will not hold anyone guiltless who misuses his name. Remember the Sabbath and keep it holy. Honor your father and your mother. You shall not murder. You shall not commit adultery. You should not steal. I want to go back to the murder. Do you think that the Israelites really thought it was okay to murder before God laid down his perfect law? Just think about that. Everybody knows that you're not supposed to murder people except psychopaths. You shall not give false testimony against your neighbor. And you shall not covet your neighbor's house. Covet. Let's talk about covet. What does covet mean? Covet means if I see my neighbor has a new car and I'm like, man, he's got an awesome car. I want that car. So right there, the entire system of capitalism is a sin according to the 10 Commandments. And I love how Christians, they take the 10 Commandments and they throw them up on a pedestal and they say, this is the moral law. This is the law. This is where, we as human beings get our morality and our laws. God's perfect laws. Well, we already know that everybody's breaking the law by taking a billion selfies of themselves because they're making an image and pretty much worshiping it, because a lot of people worship the selfies, especially the Kardashians. And then coveting. Our whole economical system is set up on coveting. Your neighbor gets a new TV, you want a new TV. You see an ad of a car, you want that car. You see the new iPhone, you want that iPhone. We're breaking the commandments left and right. So, from then on, we go into the tabernacle, idols and altars, all of these things, priest garments, offerings, everything. So it goes into some more detail about how to make the temple, how to make this, how to make that. So now let's skip to Exodus 32. So we go to Exodus 32. And so you got to remember, Moses, he's been up on the mountain for 40 days and 40 nights getting the 10 Commandments. So the people are down at the base camp, and it says here in Exodus 32, when the people saw that Moses was so long in coming down from the mountain, they gathered around Aaron and said, Come make us gods who will go before us. And this is where they make the golden calf. Now, this is one thing that I find it makes no sense going back to logic. So the Israelites have gone through all the plagues of Egypt. They've gone through God parting the Red Sea, destroying the Egyptian army that was chasing them, gone through manna, gone through all of these things, and how quickly they forget. So what this makes me think of when you look at it logically is a lot of those stories were made up. The plagues of Egypt didn't happen. Because you would think if people seen such miraculous things, if you've seen such miraculous things, you mean to tell me that if a guy was gone for 40 days and 40 nights, a little bit over a month, that you would be, oh, well, let's make a golden calf. You know, forget all those other things. Forget the death of the firstborn. Forget the Nile turning to blood. Forget the whole ocean being split in half so we could walk across it. Let's just make a golden calf. So then, Moses, then he comes down from the mountain, and it says he went down from the mountain with the 2 tablets, with the 10 commandments. And they were inscribed on both sides, front and back. And then he comes down, and he meets up with Joshua, and Joshua thinks that there's fighting going on, and Moses is like, no, that's not fighting. The people are doing something else. So he goes down, he sees the people are doing all of their evil things, worshiping the golden calf. And in Exodus, he says here in verse 19, when Moses approached the camp and saw the calf and the dancing, his anger burned, and he threw the tablets out of his hands, breaking them to pieces at the foot of the mountain. And then he took the calf the people had made and burned it in the fire. Then he ground it into powder, scattered it in the water, and made the Israelites drink it. Gross. And then he said that they committed a great sin. And he says, who of the people still believe in God? And the Levites rallied to him. And then, of course, Moses did the Christian thing. He told the Levites to get their weapons, to strap their swords to the side, and go back to the camp, killing your brothers. And they killed, according to the Bible, in verse 28, about 3,000 people. So there's Christians with their all life is precious. You know, they hate abortion, but you dance around a golden calf, you're dead. So we get the part. Moses broke the tablets. But then, let's skip on down. So we started at Exodus 20. Now we're going to go to Exodus 34. 14 chapters later, and we get the new stone tablets. What? I thought that thou shalt not murder, thou shalt not commit adultery, thou shalt not have no gods before me. I thought those were the 10 commandments. And let me also say that there's no thou shalt not rape or thou shalt not have slaves. But those were the 10 commandments. That's what we were always taught. If we watched that movie with Yul Brynner and Charlton Heston, the 10 commandments were those. But, we're wrong. So now we're 14 chapters later, and the Lord says to Moses, chisel out 2 stone tablets like the first. So now we know they're different. And I will write on them words that were on the first tablets, which you broke. So Moses does this. He takes them up to God. And this is where we have a problem. Okay, so God is supposed to know everything. He knows the future. He knows the past. He knows everything. But God is a little forgetful here. He tells Moses that he's going to put the same words that he did before, but he doesn't. And his new commandments are way different from his first commandments. And it starts with not to make a treaty with any of the other peoples that you live in the land, for you will marry with them and you will worship their gods. Do not make any idols. So that's kind of like the first part. Celebrate the festival of unleavened bread. What? That wasn't in the first commandments. It says, next, the first offspring of every womb belongs to me, including all the firstborn males of your livestock, whether from your herd or their flock. That wasn't in the first commandments. No one is to appear before him empty-handed. Again, not in the first ones. 6 days shall you labor, but on the seventh day you shall rest. Okay, that goes back to kind of remembering the Sabbath. Then we get celebrate the festival of weeks with the first fruits of the wheat harvest. Not in the first ones. Then we get to do not offer the blood of a sacrifice to me along with anything containing yeast. Yeast? What are we talking about here? What happened to murder and don't steal and don't covet and don't commit adultery? Then we come to bring the best of the first fruits of your soil to the house of the Lord your God. What? And then we get to do not cook a young goat in its mother's milk. Number one, gross, but what happened to the other 10 commandments? And then it says, then the Lord said to Moses, write down these words, for in accordance with these words I have made a covenant with you and with Israel. Moses was there with the Lord 40 days and 40 nights without eating bread or drinking water. Who gives a crap? And he wrote on the tablets the words of the covenant, the 10 commandments. So we had the first 10 commandments that Christians love to put up in the courthouses and in schools, saying this is the moral law of God. But we know that Moses broke them. So now God gives him a new 10 commandments, and they're totally different. Festival of unleavened bread, festival of weeks, don't cook a young goat in his mother's milk. Now we don't have no murder, we don't have no adultery, we don't have no stealing, we don't have no coveting. God, the amazing God who created the entire universe, I think he's got a little Alzheimer's kicking in because he couldn't remember what he had written down earlier. And if we go back, like I said, let's go back up here to the top, just so we can say. It says, the Lord said to Moses, chisel out 2 stone tablets like the first ones, and I will write on them the words that were on the first tablets, which you broke. God, if you're up there in heaven, are you okay, buddy? Because you didn't write the same words. You totally forgot everything that you wrote to begin with and just kind of made up some shit. So there you go. The 10 commandments that Christians love to, like I said, put up in the courthouse and say are the moral laws. They're not the real 10 commandments. The real 10 commandments were broken by Moses. So God had to create more 10 commandments. And the 10 commandments that he created, secondly, I don't think anybody would want to put those up in a school or in a courthouse, because I don't think that they have anything to do with the laws that we have today. I don't think anybody gives a shit about cooking a young goat in its mother's milk. I think you would have to be a psychopath and a really gross person to do that anyway. So here we go. This is the holy book. This is the all-powerful God. This is the thing you worship. This is what you worship. This is what you worship. This is you say all the time that this country was founded on Judeo-Christian values. These are your values? Celebrate the festival of weeks. Bring God your first fruits. Do not offer blood in a sacrifice containing yeast. This is why. See, this is why. People ask me, Dave, why can you not be a Christian? Because the Bible, when you read it, makes absolutely no sense at all. I think when people think about the Ten Commandments, they remember the Charlton Heston movie, because I was recently rewatching that, and what's funny about that is in the Ten Commandment movie, when Charlton Heston breaks the tablets, there's a little part that says, and the tablets were gathered and put in the Ark of the Covenant, which, no, they weren't. I'm reading the exact words out of the Bible. Doesn't say that at all. It says that God made separate tablets, because it's so dramatic in that movie when Charlton Heston's up against the wall and the voice is speaking very deeply, and it's a whirlwind of fire, and the lightning is shooting out and cutting it into the stone, and it says, "Thou shalt not commit murder." Imagine if they reshot that scene, how freaking hilarious it would be with all that going on, and then the lightning shoots out of the fire and right to the stone. "Do not cook a young goat in its mother's milk raw." There you go, Christians. Your 20 commandments. You're welcome.